We're going to attempt what I call the Harris Mountain Triangle in the Mount Charleston Wilderness, and it is about 40 miles outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. The eastern ridge, we've been up the western ridge. The western ridge is over here. You see that ridge approaching the summit of Harris Mountain. Well, what makes it a triangle is that there's also an eastern ridge that comes in this direction, and that ridge you can take from the escarpment, which is this cliffy, rocky area right in front of us. And there's a trail that goes up to the escarpment around the base and up around the top of the escarpment, and you can catch this ridge from that trail and then ascend to Harris Mountain. What we're going to try to do, though, is ascend this ridge and then take a right up at that area where the incline levels off right before the summit. There's a lot of rocky sections there. Not sure if it's possible, but we're going to give it a try, and alternately, if we can't do that, then we'll come down and on another day attempt the approach from what looks like a more gradual, longer ridge up to Harris Mountain summit. And by the way, here we are in the parking lot for the Charleston Lodge. We have some visitors in the lot today. Wild horses. So we're starting out at the Fletcher Canyon trailhead today. There's the trailhead parking. By the way, it's already overflowing it's about 8:30, 8:45, and you can see the overflow parking on Kyle Canyon Road. There is the beast. We didn't make it into the parking area. So yeah, if you're going to hit the Fletcher Canyon parking area, start from that parking lot, then get here by about 7:30 to ensure yourself a parking spot. The route that we're going to take begins taking a left behind the restroom, crossing this wash, taking a left on the Acastus Trail, and then heading for a ridge you can't really see. It's through the trees. Maybe you can faintly see it there between the trees. Yeah, what we're going to do is find a point where we can begin to ascend this portion of the ridge. We call it the Eastern Approach Ridge to Harris Mountain. And over on this side, is what we call the western approach ridge. We've taken this a few times and know it very well. Up in the center is Harris Mountain. Sorry about that, you're not seeing anything through the trees, but you'll get better views later today. And these two ridges form what we call the Harris Mountain Triangle. We're going to take the east ridge up, the west ridge on the right down, and the base of the triangle is the Acastus Trail along this area, and a more definite baseline is Kyle Canyon Road. So there you have it, the Harris Mountain Triangle. Let's head for the eastern approach ridge. Start out behind the restroom, cross the bridge, take a left on the Acastus Trail, and then find an approach, an access to this eastern approach ridge. There's the western approach ridge. So there you have it, the Harris Triangle. So there's a series of potential approach ridges, and the goal is to try to read from below which ones are going to continue and be most likely to take us all the way up to Harris Mountain. A ridge that has the some good possibilities is indeed this ridge, although there are some vertical areas up ahead on the ridge. In fact, if you look closely, that looks like a cliff face there in the midst of the trees. So I'm going to descend even further and see if we can catch the opposite side of this upper ridge that you're looking at. We may have to go all the way around the escarpment trail to catch this, but let's go ahead and do that, because it looks like everywhere else there's a chance that I could end up at a cliff face after having invested all that time to ascend about 1,000 feet. Okay, now we're all the way down to the escarpment, and here's the upper escarpment cliffs, and it looks like we're going to need to catch the escarpment trail, circle around this upper end of the cliffs on that trail, and then see if we can reach an approach that escapes all these cliffs up ahead. So I'm hoping that the opposite side of this cliffy section is a little more gradual. If not, then we're left to navigate other approaches. Okay, so let's continue down the Acastus Trail until we meet up with the Escarpment Trail, and then it will take us up around these escarpment cliffs and then over to potential approach up ahead. And just for perspective, we're looking up Kyle Canyon, and up ahead you can see Cathedral Rock. And then above it is the southern rim of Kyle Canyon leading up. If you are heading to the right on that upper rim, you're heading up toward Charleston Peak on the Charleston South Loop Trail. And then over this way, of course, the Charleston Lodge. And then cliffs at the base of Fletcher Peak. And we have a page on Las Vegas Area Trails and a video that shows how we navigated through these cliffs, made it all the way up to Fletcher Peak. And then here's the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway. Okay, so let's head on up this trail, which is the upper end of the escarpment loop, and navigate, see if we can navigate behind these cliffs. Continuing up the west end, upper end of the escarpment trail loop. And you can see we're going to circle around, and then above, the trail will circle around and above these escarpment cliffs. And our goal is to find a way to navigate behind those upper cliffs. This is the trail we've been ascending, and you can see where the escarpment trail in the west end of the loop branches off from this trail we're on. And if you'd continued in this direction, you'd be skirting the lower edge of the escarpment cliffs. But what we want to do is we want to take this right turn here, and the trail will circle around the right side of the escarpment cliff face and then on up, and we'll be looking for some approaches to Harris Mountain up there. Continuing to ascend the escarpment loop, but here's a good spot to assess that ridge we passed up just a moment ago. Take a look at it. You'll see that there are some rocky sections. It doesn't look like there's anything beyond class 3 though. So maybe I could have taken that ridge. Not sure. Let's take a closer look. So that ridge that I believe ends down near the beginning point of the Acastus Trail after the picnic area and campground. It looks almost possible. A little bit of a climb in this area. So that's doable, but this trail may get me up to a higher elevation without having to navigate the rocky sections, which can consume a lot of time. Here's a great perspective. You can see down to Kyle Canyon Road and the lower end of the camping and picnic area. And there below us is also the intersection of the Kyle Canyon Road and Deer Creek Road. Here we're tracing Deer Creek Road now, upward toward Angel Peak. There's the church below. Angel Peak. The escarpment trail has brought us up this far. There's the trail. And then circling around, let's take a look at a few other landmarks here. You can see Coxcomb Ridge. The cliffs at the base of Fletcher Peak. Upper ridge of Kyle Canyon, upper South Ridge. Leading to Charleston Peak. And then, as long as we're talking about the Harris Mountain Triangle, here's the Western Approach Ridge. And I'm hoping we're on an access to the Eastern Approach Ridge. There's another access below us, but as I pointed out, quite a rocky section up here. And all it takes is a 10-foot vertical wall to turn me around. Even a 6-foot vertical wall. I'm a rock climbing wimp. Okay, and what we want to do is find an approach to this upper ridge behind these cliffs. And hopefully it's more gradual up there than it looks from this end. So we're going to continue up the escarpment trail here, and we're getting some good altitude, as you can see. So this is paying off. And by the way, above and behind the western approach ridge is Griffith Peak. So that should all give you an idea of perspective here from this location. And here ahead of us is the most gradual, extended eastern approach ridge. And the challenge is going to be to make it on the far side of those cliffs and hopefully find something more gradual than what we see on this side of the ridge. We're on the escarpment trail along the upper edge of the escarpment cliffs. You can see the Charleston Lodge below us. And then over to the visitor gateway. And then on up to the approach ridge. And as you can see, there's a very rocky section up here on the eastern approach ridge. I think today I'm going to make this the initial exploration, and we're going to see if we can, if it is more gradual on the other side of that rocky section, if we can get to that, and then it's possible to continue up. And then my new plan would be to return and begin at the visitor gateway. Which would be a low point. And if everything works out, take the escarpment trail up the lower loop of the escarpment trail, the lower end, the eastern end, connect with this ridge, ascend to Harris Mountain, and then descend by way of the western approach ridge. Descend to the Acastus Trail, and then take the Acastus Trail back down to the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway. And that in total would be the Harris Mountain Triangle. So, so we'll see. I just want to see today, during this initial exploration, what the terrain looks like on the far side of these cliffs. And it looks more friendly up there on the far side than it looks from this side. Okay, we've come the full circle on the escarpment trail. I'm on the eastern edge of the trail, still above the cliffs, and you're looking down Kyle Canyon over to Gas Peak. And the La Madre Mountains. And it looks as if this end of the escarpment trail may be the key to this ridge. Not sure, but it looks like an ascent point could be right about this area, straight ahead, ascending upward, but still we need to look at the far side of those cliffs to see what the terrain looks like on the far side there. I think this area would get us up, this ridge ahead would get us up to the base of those cliffs on the left side, where we would have access to the far side. So again, here is a potential ascent point right ahead. Yeah, this bench could be the beginning of the ascent point, but as you look at the cliffs above, getting to the far side of those cliffs involves being on the far side of this ridge. So we need to take a good look at potential ascent points that would take us up the far side of this ridge directly ahead, that would lead to the far side of those cliffs.